Pull down your sock right now and look at the band of skin just above your ankle. If there is a groove pressed into your flesh, a horizontal line that lingers, that does not vanish in 5 or 10 seconds, your legs have been silently failing to drain for a very long time. Now press your thumb into the front of your shin, just below the knee, hold it there for 5 seconds, and release. If the dent stays, even faintly, even briefly, what you are looking at has a name your doctor never said aloud. It is called pitting edema, and it is the visible signal of a drainage system that has been quietly losing capacity for years, possibly for a decade. Research from American Vascular Societies and NIH lymphatic studies indicates that an estimated 30 million Americans live with some form of chronic venous and lymphatic insufficiency, and the average patient waits years, sometimes the better part of a decade, before any clinician investigates the drainage system itself instead of the symptom on the surface. That sock line groove? That dent in your shin? It has a cause, it has a mechanism, it has a documented anatomy. And your doctor was handed no test, no billing code, and no 15-minute appointment slot to find it. The reimbursement architecture made certain you would be handed compression stockings, a diuretic, or a vague referral. Never the $4 drink that has been sitting on European hospital trays for 60 years. By the end of this video, you will know exactly which drink, which of 3 swelling types your legs belong to, why this protocol vanished from American pharmacies, and the 20-minute nightly routine that helps the legs drain measurably before sleep. Subscribe so you never miss what the medical establishment hopes you never ask about. Because to understand how this was buried, you have to go back 400 years to a dissecting room in northern Italy, and then forward to a small clinic in the Black Forest of Germany that revived the entire science in 1981. The year was 1622. The place was the University of Pavia. A surgeon and anatomist named Gaspare Aselli opened a fed dog and saw something no medical textbook had ever recorded. Thread-like vessels running through the mesentery, white, milky, filled with a fluid that was not blood. He had discovered the lacteals, the lymphatic vessels of the gut, and with that single observation, he opened the door on an entire second circulatory system inside the human body. A network with no heart, no central pump, and yet one that moves more fluid every single day than the arteries push through your arms. His findings were published posthumously in 1627 as De Lactibus Sive Lactes Venis. Within 3 decades, Olaus Rudbeck in Uppsala and Thomas Bartholin in Copenhagen had completed the full anatomical map. Bartholin's Vasa lymphatica appeared in 1653. 600 to 700 lymph nodes. 2 to 3 liters of interstitial fluid reabsorbed every 24 hours. The exact drainage pathway of the human leg, foot to calf, calf to popliteal nodes behind the knee, thigh to inguinal nodes in the groin, then upward through the cisterna coeli and the thoracic duct, emptying behind your left collarbone. The biology was on parchment paper before the first stethoscope was ever invented. 400 years before the first diuretic was patented, anatomists had already drawn the exact pathway your legs are failing to use tonight. Here's the irony that should set the rest of this story on fire. The mechanism was never disproven. It was simply replaced by something more profitable to prescribe. The lymphatic vessels are not passive tubes. They contain segmented muscular units called lymphangions, tiny pumping chambers that contract on their own, roughly 6 to 10 times per minute when healthy, slowing dramatically when overloaded. Swiss researcher Henry Mislin first documented this rhythmic contractility in peer-reviewed studies in the 1960s. The leg has its own clock. When you stand for 8 hours, gravity pulls between half a liter and a full liter of fluid into your lower limb interstitial space. Healthy lymphangions, working with the calf muscle pump and overnight elevation, reclaim it all. Failing lymphangions cannot, and that is why the groove in your sock line gets worse with every passing year. In 22 years of treating leg swelling, I have never once seen a lymphangion function test ordered by a primary care physician. There is no such test on a standard panel. There is no checkbox for it. In 1981, in the Black Forest village of Hinterzarten, Germany, 2 physicians named Michael and Ethel Felde founded what is now considered the global gold standard for lymphatic medicine, the Felde Clinic. Their protocol, combined decongestive therapy combining manual drainage, compression, exercise, and herbal decoctions, has been published for decades in journals like Lymphology, the official publication of the International Society of Lymphology. Their cohort outcome reports document measurable reductions in limb circumference within 14 days. 14 days. The $4 drink was on their hospital tray in 1983. But to understand why your legs swell the way they do, you have to see the system as it actually works. Your leg is a one-way river. foot to calf, calf to knee, knee to groin, groin to chest. The river has direction, it has stops, it has choke points. The popliteal nodes behind your knee filter everything coming up from the lower leg. The inguinal nodes in your groin filter everything coming up from the thigh, and the river has no engine of its own. It depends on the soleus muscle in your calf, what physiologists have called the second heart, squeezing veins and lymphatics every time you take a step. By 3 p.m., if you have been sitting at a desk, the river slows. By evening, the calf feels like it is wearing a stocking that isn't there. The boot zipper won't close. The wedding ring won't come off your toe. Walter, a retired school teacher of 63, who I will simply call Walter, came into my practice after 7 years on 3 different diuretics. He had been told the swelling was just his age. His electrocardiogram was perfect. His kidney function was perfect. His albumin was perfect. His lymph was suffocating. And no clinician had ever once palpated his inguinal nodes or watched him perform a single calf raise. This is where the story changes, because you cannot apply a single intervention to leg swelling without knowing which of 3 patterns you live with. There are 3. Type 1 is venous dominant swelling. The swelling is worse by evening, better by morning. Spider veins or varicose veins are visible. The sensation is aching, not heavy. Brown discoloration may appear above the ankle. That is hemosiderin staining from leaking red cells. The differentiator for type 1 is critical. This version responds to circulatory tonics and calf pump activation. Compression alone, without drainage support underneath, stagnates the lymphatic vessels beneath the skin. Type 2 is lymphatic dominant swelling. The swelling persists through the morning. The sock line groove takes 30 minutes or more to fade. The skin feels rubbery, almost fibrotic, to the touch. The pitting is deeper and slower to rebound. The differentiator for type 2 is critical. This version responds to lymphagogue herbs and manual drainage in the correct direction. Diuretics make type 2 worse because they pull water out of the bloodstream while leaving the trapped interstitial fluid exactly where it is, drying the tissue, hardening the swelling, and dehydrating the patient. Type 3 is mixed phlebolymphatic swelling. It is by far the most common version in adults over 55. Both patterns at once, aching by afternoon, heaviness by evening, pitting that lingers into morning. The differentiator for type 3 is the most important sentence in this entire video. It requires a sequenced protocol, venous activation first, lymphatic drainage second. Reversing the sequence floods the inguinal nodes with fluid they cannot yet process. Identified your type? Keep it in mind, because what works for one type actively worsens another, and the wrong sequence is why most people give up after a week. Now ask yourself why no doctor has ever offered you this 3-type framework. The answer is the first enemy in this story, and it is not a human being, it is a code. The ICD-10 diagnostic system contains I-87.2 for chronic venous insufficiency and I-89.0 for lymphedema, and almost nothing in between. The subclinical phlebolymphatic stagnation that affects the majority of adults over 50 has no clean billable entry. No code means no reimbursement. No reimbursement means no test. No test means no diagnosis. No diagnosis means you walk out with compression stockings, a diuretic, and the words, "just your age," written nowhere on your chart, but spoken into your ear. Without a billing code, your swollen legs do not exist on paper. American medical school curricula reportedly dedicate fewer than 4 hours to the lymphatic system across 4 years of training. 4 hours. To the network that moves more fluid than the heart pushes blood through your forearms. Here is the twist that reframes everything. The suppression is not a conspiracy. It is a structural outcome. The global diuretic market is valued in the billions. The compression garment market is its own multi-billion-dollar ecosystem. Pneumatic compression pumps run between $800 and $5,000 per unit. Symptom management generates recurring revenue. Root cause restoration through a $4 herbal decoction generates revenue exactly once, and then never again. The drink was never legally banned from American pharmacies. It was economically excluded. Herbal lymphagogues and venotonics cannot be patented. They cannot be assigned an exclusive FDA indication. They cannot deliver margin to a pharmacy buyer. So they simply do not appear behind the counter. Nobody outlawed the drink. They simply built a pharmacy that could not afford to sell it. And the $4 drink? What is it exactly? Across the published phytotherapy literature, one plant appears repeatedly: horse chestnut seed extract, Aesculus hippocastanum. The German Commission E. That country's official scientific monograph authority on herbal medicines validated it decades ago for chronic venous insufficiency. The European Scientific Cooperative on Phytotherapy lists it in its monograph series. Cochrane, the most rigorous independent evidence review body in the world, has published meta-analyses on horse chestnut for CVI showing reductions in leg pain, leg heaviness, and lower leg volume across monitored patient cohorts. The active compound, ASIN, reduces capillary permeability. 20 minutes to onset. Sold in every German pharmacy, invisible in yours. And this is where the institutional attack arrived. Regulatory warning letters were sent to American supplement manufacturers making vascular drainage claims. Reimbursement denials piled up against integrative physicians who prescribed venotonic botanicals. Medical board scrutiny followed any clinician who deviated from the diuretic and compression algorithm. My name is Dr. James Whitfield. I spent 22 years inside the system. I am telling you what it cost me to say this out loud. The attack was never on the plant. It was on the doctors who remembered it. But here is what biology cannot erase. The research is not hidden in some foreign laboratory. The NIH PubMed database contains hundreds of indexed entries on horse chestnut, on ASIN, on lymphangian function. Mayo Clinic acknowledges chronic venous insufficiency as a documented condition. Johns Hopkins has published vascular imaging work. Harvard-affiliated researchers have contributed to lymphatic vessel biology. The data exists inside the same institutional system your doctor works within, and it still never reached you. Now, travel to Germany, to Hinterzarten, to the Foldy Clinic, where monitored patient cohorts, using combined decongestive therapy and supportive botanicals, have shown sustained reductions in limb circumference across decades of published outcomes. To the Wittlinger Therapiezentrum in Austria, an entire hospital built around the same principles. To France, where the National Health System, CPAM, reimburses manual lymphatic drainage as a standard medical service alongside venotonic prescriptions. To the Scandinavian outcome registries that have tracked vascular and lymphatic patient cohorts across more than a decade and documented sustained results. The proof is not buried, it is sitting on a shelf in Munich. It is printed in German, in French, in Swedish, in Dutch. Same biology. Different incentive structure. Routine in Europe. Invisible in your primary care office. So the protocol, type matched, looks like this. If you are type 1, the venous dominant pattern, brew the horse chestnut decoction 60 minutes before bed, perform 3 minutes of slow calf raises while standing in your kitchen, then lie flat with your legs elevated 15 degrees on a pillow for 5 minutes, and consider light overnight compression. If you are type 2, the lymphatic dominant pattern, brew the decoction 75 minutes before bed, perform 60 seconds of gentle inguinal node pumping at the crease of your groin, then lie with your legs straight up the wall at 90 degrees for 5 minutes while breathing slowly into your diaphragm. If you are type 3, the mixed phlebo-lymphatic pattern that most adults over 55 live with, brew the drink 90 minutes before bed and execute the sequence carefully. 2 minutes of calf activation first, then 60 seconds of inguinal pumping, then 5 minutes of leg elevation. Then 5 cycles of 4-7-8 diaphragmatic breathing, inhale 4, hold 7, exhale 8, 20 minutes total, 14 nights total. The protocol every Foldy physician will tell you about if you can get to Hinterzarten. A woman I will call Margaret, 58 years old, had been prescribed compression stockings and a low-dose diuretic for 6 years. 6 doctors. 6 versions of "this is just what happens." Her ankle groove faded within the 3rd week of the sequence type 3 protocol. Her boot zipper closed again. Her blood work did not change. Her insurance file did not change. Her body changed. Because the drainage pathway has not changed since Aselli drew it in 1622. The biology is identical. The popliteal nodes still sit behind your knees. The inguinal nodes still sit at the crease of your groin. The lymphangians still pulse 6 to 10 times every minute, waiting for breath, for movement, for elevation, for the simple plant compounds traditional European medicine handed down for centuries. The body does not care about market forces. It does not care about reimbursement codes. It does not care about pharmacy buyer margins, or curriculum hours, or the absence of an FDA indication. The drainage pathway is still open. The vessels are still patent. The nodes are still filtering. The river is still trying to flow. Somewhere tonight, in a quiet kitchen in Stuttgart, in Lyon, in Stockholm, In a small apartment in Vienna, someone is steeping a $4 drink. They are propping their legs against the wall in the soft yellow light of a single lamp. By morning, the sock line groove will be gone. The boot zipper will close. The shin will not hold a dent when a thumb presses into it. And no insurance underwriter, no diagnostic code, no pharmacy buyer, no curriculum committee, no quietly issued regulatory letter will ever know it happened. Your legs never forgot how to drain. The pharmacy around you simply forgot to stock the answer. This content is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Always consult your physician before making changes to your health routine.